Jurassic World is back. Rebirth. Born again. Will this movie not only make $1 billion, because that's what all the other Jurassic Worlds have done, will it breathe some life into this franchise, or is it a lot of the same old, same old? Can movie star power help this? Can some solid directing help this? I don't know. What say you? Growing up as a kid, Saturday Night Live was the thing, man. That watching George Carlin, Robin Williams. So when Saturday Night Live was almost in the poops, when it almost got shut down, there were two people that were really keeping it alive. Obviously Eddie Murphy, but the person that was bouncing back and forth with Eddie Murphy, making a lot of those sketches work, was Joe Piscopo. And Joe did a movie that I love, Johnny Dangerously, and a bunch of other things. He's got a brand new book, and talk to him. Pretty great conversation. And then I'm going to talk to you guys today. So I know I'm by my lonesome, and I don't have everybody with me, but this is a chance for us to have a chat. So anything you want to ask me, any conversations you want to have, start throwing those questions in now. And by the end of the show, I will answer said questions. And it's how it always works. You however long you want the show to be, it's up to it's up to you guys, and I understand. So let's get to it today. Let's do the show. It's myself and you. So here we go. Welcome back to the Kristian Harloff Show. It's me, Kristian Harloff. As I said, by my lonesome today, I'll be joined by the great Joe Piscopo in just a little bit. But there is a lot of stuff going on in the world of movies lately. It's always slower in January, right? Whether it's the releases that are coming out, news in general, and then things start picking up once February hits, and things are picking up now. You get in the trailers, you get in the Super Bowl stuff, and the big trailers already, the two of them that everyone thought were going to drop were Fantastic Four and Jurassic World. Those two dropped already. Jurassic World today, Fantastic Four yesterday, and we assume Mission Impossible will either be the end of this week or it's just going to actually drop on Sunday. And what was the other one? Superman, which will be at the Doggy Bowl or whatever the hell that thing's called, the Puppy Bowl. That will drop right before the Super Bowl itself. So we'll have a little bit more behind the scenes or whatever the hell it is. The Puppy Bowl is right before Super Bowl. Someone asking in the comment section. So this is it's interesting. And like I said, there wasn't even a lot of news today, minus this trailer. So I figured we'll just kind of do the same thing I did yesterday for the trailer for Fantastic Four. And that, of course, as we will bring this up here, I guess we can do it. Can we do it that way? Well, let's try it this way. I'm going to bring up the screen so you guys can see it. Here it is. Here is the screen. Yay. There. Why can't I see me? What that is all about. I'll get it. There it is. Okay. So as this started, I mean, right away, with the you got this the when the dinosaurs ruled the world thing that was going on. I hate this stupid thing. There it is. So I wasn't sure exactly what we were doing here, and Scarlett Johansson comes in, brings this dude with us. Hey, we got something we got going on. Let's go to the island. It looks like it's the first island. She's looking badass. She's badass. So we see the dinosaurs. Everybody sees the dinosaurs right off the bat. Hey, a nice little tail. There you go. Looking up, and we see some more big dinosaurs. They can't believe that they're seeing it. But for us, like, yeah, we not have only seen this scene 1,000 times. We've seen all the dinosaurs, but it's cool that you guys see the dinosaurs, and let's do it more. It looks very Jurassic Park 3 to me so far. But nonetheless, hey, we got to go, and we're going to go to this thing. Nobody else is stupid enough to go, but we're stupid enough to go. So not only is the most dangerous thing for us, let's get Mahershala Ali. He's great, and he's probably going to be a badass. He's on my team, so no one has done this. No one has done this? This is crazy. So we should bring kids with us. But they do just that, and they go on the mission, whatever. Some rich guy's going to want to bring in his kids, and here that's the crazy thing where no one's done this thing like us because we're nuts. And then they go in and they start this to me was the best part of the trailer. It's like, yeah, this is where it all started, in the very beginning, from movie one. Here's all the embryos. Here's all shit went down, and this is again stuff that we've seen before. They're going to the island. They see this island has been populated for however long it is, and then something goes wrong. That's what always happens. Something goes wrong. Here's what and I don't mind that. Some people are like, oh, we've seen it a million times. It's over and over. I don't mind this. I don't mind this with the eggs are trying to take thing. The dinosaur gets pissed off and they have to, and that's the simple version. Here's my problem with this movie in general, what I'm worried about. Because you have all this, and here they are, and it's this thing. Whenever this thing is, we're going to get another abomination, another stupid monster. Stop with the monsters. And that's what this whole stupid thing has been about. No more monsters. Just do dinosaurs. But it's not going to be dinosaurs. It's like nobody cares. No one's scared of the dinosaurs anymore. It's going to be big stupid monsters, like the dumb stupid monsters in the other two Jurassic Worlds. But what I think that this trailer does well is you got to remember this. No matter what we all think, it's like, oh, we've seen this a million times. We've seen it. These movies, all three of the Jurassic Worlds, unlike a lot of people, I liked the first Jurassic World. I did not like the second. I hated the third. Wait, which one did I hate? Hated the second one. Thought the third one was just forgettable, clearly. I don't remember which one's which. The second one was so stupid. But now, this one, I mean, look, you got a really solid director with Gareth Edwards. You got great cast with both Mahershala Ali and Scarlett Johansson. So I like what they're doing there. I don't mind that they're doing the whole, hey, we're going on an island. This is a team. They know they shouldn't be going, and then something goes awry, and here come the dinosaurs. I don't mind it. Like I said, I hate the monsters. The monsters are very stupid and just like I don't understand. And maybe they're going to explain this, but I thought that they were kind of going more towards the Planet of the Apes. Dinosaurs are taking over. We tried to stop it, but instead, evolution turned it around, and now they are the dominant species now. And I guess that the answer would be, well, technology would never allow that to happen. Maybe that's ultimately what happens. So you have to go to these places. I don't know. But nonetheless, the trailer shows a big summer action movie. And I think that they accomplished that. I think that the awareness of this, when you put it in front of, they're probably going to show the little teasers in Super Bowl. But then they're going to start running this trailer before movies and leading up to July or whatever it is. What a month. I think this is the beginning of July. I think it's this movie, then Superman, and then Fantastic Four. So it seems like a summer movie season of old, like we haven't gotten that type of feel in quite a while. And you've had big movies come out, but not like the big IPs. You're getting Jurassic Park, DC, Marvel, Superman, Fantastic Four, Jurassic World. You're like, boom, boom, boom. I mean, that's a fun time at the movies in general. I mean, these movies are fun to watch in the theater. Even the bad ones, they're fun to watch in the theater. There's no doubt about it. You just want them to be good. The monster movie thing is really, it does make me nervous, to be honest. Stupid hybrid thing at the end, whatever that thing is. It's unnecessary. Well, how did the hybrid get to that island? I thought they were the other ones. I don't know. And then you get some other big movies that are coming out. And what's it? Thinking, what are the other big ones? I know you got the ballerina. You got Mission Impossible. I'm going to see Paddington in Peru. I'm not seeing it in Peru. It's the name of the movie. I'm going to see the movie this weekend. So I'll have an out of the theater for that one. Then I'll have an out of the theater for Captain America. So Yeah. Well, yeah, someone's Craven and Madame Web were not a fun time in the theater. I don't disagree with you there. I'm not saying all these big blockbuster movies. I was speaking specifically on Jurassic World. I don't disagree with you. There are some movies sometimes that even though they're big movies, just because they're big movies doesn't mean they're good in the theater. I couldn't agree with you more, Mira. But Jurassic World, for some reason, it's like, okay, wasn't like even the third one, which wasn't good. The second one was terrible. And I remember walking, ugh. But I was like, I still watched a big dinosaur movie in the theater in an IMAX. But you just wish I'm just looking for a great one. Just looking for another great movie. Because I hate the fact when people say, well, that it's never going to happen. It's so not true, because I always use like the Fast and Furious. Fast and Furious, when the fifth movie was coming out, everybody's like, oh, they're doing another one of these? Why? Who cares? And they turned it around completely. They turned the whole thing around and changed the now they're starting to beat it to death, but they changed the franchise in the way it was. Now, you don't necessarily have to go bigger and crazier in order to make it work. But like I always said this about, like, I think you can do the opposite. Like Terminator. I still believe you can turn Terminator around. Terminator's in the shits right now. Terminator you could turn around by making it a smaller budget, kind of old school, kind of A24 type movie. And I know you can't go that small with Jurassic Park, but man, I'd love to see a smaller, almost like Ex Machina type of Jurassic Park scale movie. A little scarier, a little not as on the nose. And even maybe doing something, I guess at this point, it's harder to do. But like, I loved what Shyamalan did with Split. You didn't even know. I mean, for people, a lot of people didn't remember Unbreakable, but I loved Unbreakable. So that's a movie experience. And when you guys ask a question, because it'll inevitably come in one of the super chats, about what's a movie that you thought you were going to dislike and you wind up really digging it. I hated that movie watching it. Split. I hated it. I was like, this is so ridiculous. This has nothing to do with the rules that they're setting up. And when that music kicked in, I went, I get it. This movie's awesome. I get it, because it just completely it changed the rules. It never changed the rules. It changed the rules, what I thought were the rules in my head when the reveal happened. It was brilliant. And they didn't market it off of that. And the music came in and kicked in. And I'm a musical score junkie. So the second it kicked in, I was like, oh, Unbreakable. Because I listened to that thing so many different times. But yeah, because Unbreakable is actually my favorite Shyamalan movie. So when that kicked in, I did not like the last one though. And I couldn't stand that argument. I got into talks to people. Well, would you want it to be just a full-on superhero movie? There's just like they set up the rules. He set up the rules as a comic book movie in the original. I mean, he was making comic movies before anybody. And I didn't like what he did. I didn't like what happened, the way that they treated the Bruce Willis character at all in that one. But anyway, I diverge. Digress? I said diverge. But sure, I diverge as well. Yeah, McAvoy was great in Split. So that's a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here. I wanted to bring up this movie because I'm so curious on how it's going to go. And I wanted to get your thoughts. And so I'm going to give you guys some time to throw some questions in there. And I'm going to tell you about our wonderful sponsors, obviously. And then once I get my guest in here, and we'll get your questions and let's do it. So without any further ado. Oh yeah. Via is back, everybody. And I knew people were excited about that. They were like, oh, they're coming back. Are they coming back? Hell yeah, they're coming back. And they are back, ladies and gentlemen. Via, if you didn't know, you do now. All right. So I don't know if you've already tried it. And if you haven't, it's time to try it. Via now has been with us for a little bit. And 2025 is all about change, whether it is work, whether it's personal stuff, or just a daily grind. It can be hard to keep up. But when things get hectic, you don't have to go through it alone. Embrace the power of nature. Elevate your everyday with Via. It's trusted by over 500,000 customers. It is the Swiss Army knife of wellness. It's dedicated to harnessing natural benefits of hemp to create high-quality wellness products. Whether you're looking to improve your sleep, your focus, your recovery, you add a little pep to your step, you just want to get high, Via has something for you. Something from the products range from 0 to 100 milligrams of THC. Via gives you the power to blaze your own trail. Via is well-renowned for their award-winning THC and THC-free gummies. I love the sleep ones. Those are the ones that I've been just right before I go to sleep. Last night when we were watching The Brutalist, I had with the sleep THC ones, and man, slept wonderfully. So good. Talk about it with your friends. Tell people about it. 21 and over. Check out our link to Via's website. The link is in our description. You got to use that code Kristian for 15% off. And if you're new to Via, you get a free gift of your choice. Again, you get you get a free gift if you go to the Via description. And after you purchase, they're going to ask you where you found them. You tell them that we sent you. That's the most important thing, because some people have said, oh man, you know what? I got it. I didn't tell them about it. Don't do that. Tell them about us. You got it. Kickoff to me is super exciting in general because of what I'm doing in my life. I'm looking to I moved to New York for a reason, changing, and I wanted to get out of LA. Some people are like, oh, it was more expensive in New York. No, not where I live. And I needed to do some stuff and prove for my family. So time passes, and it passes kind of fast. So for me, it's like, I remember meeting John in college. That was 20 years ago, something like that. It just flies by. And no matter how fast time flies by, it's never too late to make progress. If you're saving for a big purchase, whether it's a home, whether it's a car, and you got to build your credit fast, Kickoff can help that. They are the #1 credit building app in the App Store, and plans start at just $5 a month. There's no credit check. There's no hidden fees. There's no interest. So for me, it was a matter of just building up that credit, making sure that, when you want to try to get a loan for a house, man, that's what you got to do. So that's what I'm telling you. For the credit goals for me, I want to make sure that I have good credit, paying off everything. And I found them because they're like, hey, this is something you'd be interested in. And I was like, yes, it is. What's so great is if your credit's under 600, you could jump 28 points in like your first month. It's a smart, legit credit hack with no catch. There's no credit check. There's no hidden fees. There's no interest. It's simple. You just make a one-time payment. The credit bureau sees the good behavior, and then your credit grows fast. You can start building credit immediately for only $1 first month. It's affordable. Well, autopay, you never have to worry about missing a payment. You can just build credit in your sleep. Sign up in minutes from your phone. No credit check. Cancel anytime. Kickoff is the #1 credit building app out there. So here is how you do this. You build credit fast. You get your first month for just $1 at GetKickoff, KIKOFF.com/Kristian today. Thank you to Kickoff for sponsoring the show. All right, guys. I've been talking about this all week. Now, obviously with my background with the Comedy Store and stand-up comedy in general, and my love for Saturday Night Live, there was an era in Saturday Night Live at one point. And they were like, I don't know if this show is going to survive. Well, it was luckily because of my next guest, and of course the great Eddie Murphy, that show was able to continue on through their brilliant collaborations and things that they have done throughout that show's history. And my guest was also from Frank Sinatra to so many other memorable characters that he had portrayed, and then moving past into another career afterwards, from bodybuilding to I'll tell you the other thing that was, and I have to talk to him about it. I quote it on the show all the time, is Johnny Dangerously, and I'll talk to him about that. He's got a book right now, and it's awesome. It is titled Average Joe, the memoir of a blue-collar entertainer, and there's a reason for that. The way that it is just portrayed, you can feel it as if you're there on this entire journey with him. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Joe Piscopo. Hello, Joe.
Kristian, you're very kind. I'm just so happy to be with you, my friend. Thank you for your kind words, brother.
Oh man, you deserve it, and then some. I'm going through this this book and reading it, and it's like anytime someone writes a memoir like this, the first thing for me to do that I always like to do is to say thank you, because it's not easy to share those intimate details of your life. So was there any hesitation to even do that when you were writing this book?
Yeah, because you always think, who wants to read it?
Yeah,
Is it interesting enough to read? So my buddy said to me, Joe, you got to write a book, and they put it together, and then started sitting down. Then it became therapeutic,
sure.
like sitting down. It was like so like therapy for me to go through everything. Then I started because I mean I'm a fan of comedy, I'm a fan of SNL, I'm a fan of entertainment, and then I started just writing and chatting with my co-writer Scott Lamb about everything that I'd done.
Sure.
And then I went, wow, did I really go through that?
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
like really cathartic and
yeah.
really kind of cool in that regard. And I'm so thank you for even mentioning the book about you being there, because with your background, Kristian, you'll get it.
I
You'll
did.
get me with Gilly Gottfried on stage at 2 o'clock in the
I
morning,
got
man.
it. I got it.
Can
Yeah.
you imagine?
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
God, no cell phones. That's all I'm saying.
That
That's all
I
I'm saying.
you said that in the book, and I can't even tell you how many times, and I wanted to discuss that with you in general, because I have this conversation with co-hosts and people that come on all the time, and we talk about comedy today and how hard it is, because you're trying out stuff, man. Like you said, 1 a.m. Like for me, it was the original room at the Comedy Store, and I'm
Yeah,
up there like. You just throw things out there. There's things that I've said before back then where I was like, okay, I'm going to take a shot at that. And the crowd that night, they dug it. But the crowd on
yeah.
Twitter, they wouldn't.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I go up with the late great Gilbert Gottfried, one of my best friends, and at
Yeah.
the time we were like brothers. And he's such a he was always such a decent, wonderful guy, crazy Gilly.
Yeah.
But man, we used to. I would be embarrassed to talk with you about it now. The subject matter
Yeah.
on stage that we would talk about and do characterizations, and the crowd, of course, be hysterical. It was so raucous and inappropriate and politically incorrect, but we did it, man. But you're right, though. You remind me of the time when I my first big hit at the Improv, and if folks kind enough to watch it now, Kristian, they'll know you from the Comedy Store and stepping up there. That you have to hit it, and there's no mercy, there's no safety net. Am I right? It's like
100%.
you are there, my brother.
Yep.
And I don't know, people may understand it, and hopefully you understand it from the book. But I remember Chris Albrecht said to me at the Improv, and how I was probably like whatever I was in my 20s,
Hmm.
and it was like 2:30 in the morning, and he said to me, all right, Piscopo, you're on. And I write it in the book. It
Yeah.
was the check spot,
Yeah.
which would, I mean, do people understand the check spot? I mean, that's the worst,
I,
right?
I got it right away, So when I read it, that I honestly, Joe, when I was reading the book, I'm going, I could talk to him for 2 to 5 hours about stand-up comedy alone, because I was there. You took me through that hallway, and it's the same way
Yeah.
where I used to go through the Comedy Store every day, and
Oh,
I spent so
oh,
much time there, and you just like that you mentioned in the book. It's like that dark
yeah,
feel, but that energy that just is surrounding in the room because of whatever comic went up before, and even
yeah,
not necessarily if it might be the guy before you might have bombed, and you still
yeah.
feel that energy. You got to shift it. It's like you have to manipulate the energy.
That's great that you're hip to that, man.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I'll get back to the check spot,
Yeah,
but
please, please.
the Comedy Store was more daunting than any of them in my, because I already had kind of, I think, made a bit of a name for myself. Then it was, I think Mitzi, right? Is
Yeah, it
that
was Mitzi.
whoever
It
it
was
was?
Mitzi. Yeah.
Yeah, back in the day,
Yeah.
Letterman was there, everybody was there, and I remember I went up and I did a set, and it was okay. It wasn't great though, but that somehow was scary. I give you credit for doing that, my brother. Was that the first comedy club you went to? I should know this. I don't. I'm
Well,
sorry.
no, you
The
don't. That's
Comedy
okay.
Store.
No, it's okay. Actually, I started at I started in Florida State University. It's because it was very similar to what when a lot of comedian stories, your friends like, you should do this, you should do this, and I was
Yeah.
in the theater school at Florida State, and so I saw like someone had posted something up on
Yeah.
the wall, and I'm like, I always wanted to try that. And to be honest, I was watching guys like you. I was watching all the time. Everything that you were talking about in that book took me
Yeah.
back, because those are all the guys. And I'm going to be asking you a lot of stories about that time. But I wound up calling, and the guy's like, "Hey, do you have 20 minutes that you can do?" I'm like, 20 minutes? I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I didn't call the guy, so I never did it. And then he called me randomly. He said, "Hey, do you have that tape?" I'm like, "Nah, dude, I've never done this before." And he's like, "All right, why don't you meet me for lunch?" So I did, and I joined that crew, and I started
Wow.
doing comedy there. And then the first club I actually did in New York was when it used to be around, was the Boston Comedy Club, Barry Katz's club. That's
Yeah.
the one that I did. And then when I moved out to California, I had seen, I'm in New York now, but when I lived in California,
Yeah.
George Carlin was my guy, and I was and Robin Williams, and hearing about them at the Comedy Store. I walked in, Joe, at one time when I got there, when I first moved to LA in '99, the door was open, right? And nobody was in there. So I walked on stage in the OR and I looked around and I said, I will be performing here. And 2 years later, I was a regular.
Regular there at the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
I think the competition was tougher there. I think so. Because people, by the time you got in, the more and more people wanted to do it. We were kind of groundbreakers.
You were.
So
we were.
when we're talking about, my goodness gracious, the late 70s, and that's when comedy first, I think, became rock and roll, I think. And the established comics like Pryor were there. Rodney Dangerfield was there. A guy named Robert Klein.
Oh, yeah.
Robert Klein was the first comedian that actually went to college, and a lot of us graduated college, and we said, well, you could be funny if you graduated college. I said, oh, that's good. Because you're never sure,
Sure.
But I went down. But man, I went in. I should have been at law school or something. But I said, let me try this comedy thing. And I go in, and then I was like kind of asked to be a regular. And then they said, okay, Piscopo, you're up. Like it was the military at Full House, but the checks went out. And as the checks go out, they look, nobody's funny at $400 or $500.
No.
Nothing's funny after that. Man.
Right.
So I go on stage, Full House. I start doing my material, and it's not working. And I go, man, and that could be the death knell for me ever to work in the improv and probably doing any comedy again. And then I just went into the crowd. One guy said something to me. Yeah, that's great. And I said, yeah, what do you do? I'm back and forth. Hey, nice tie. You go out in public like that. Those simple things like that.
Sure.
And I start doing like a Don Rickles. I did 15 minutes of just ad-libbing and improvising. And by the grace of God, my people, we go like this,
Mm-hmm.
I said, my goodness gracious, we made it. And I was the MC after that. After that, I ran all the shows, and all the folks that would come in. Rodney would come in, and Robin Williams would come in. I think about that. Pryor would come in. Every single comic that was having. Andy Kaufman was there.
Wow.
And I know your young audience may not be hip to Andy Kaufman.
Oh, I know Andy.
Genius, insane. Am I right?
Of course.
Like crazy. And he would go in, and there I was on stage. So, and Andy Kaufman would come on, and he'd bring the bongo drums. He'd have the tall, not the bong, the big drums.
The big drums. Once he did on, and he did it on SNL also.
That's right. And so he would this, and this was even before SNL, and so around the same time. And then he would go, and I'd have to keep the crowd like busy while Andy Kaufman set up all his Mickey Mouse stuff and everything. Man, what a wild time! It was a wild time.
I was like, I'm telling you, I just felt like I was almost like put on like a VR headset when I was reading your book, like watching this go through. You tell this great story about how Rodney Dangerfield kind of taught you the way to host and or to introduce rather. And do you mind? I don't want to take too much away from the book, but can you paraphrase that a little bit?
Yeah, no, because Rodney to me was the greatest comic of all, because you have to have and I'm not really a comedian, I'm more an entertainer, but knowing comedians, knowing Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David and everybody like that, Rodney was the guy who absorbed the character. You absorbed the character, and then you would execute your comedy from the character. Everything, he never wavered. It was always from I get no respect. That was he was brilliant. I mean, brilliant. He wrote the book on how, in my opinion, how to do stand-up comedy. And so I knew him. He'd come in, and all the time. And then I'm on stage, I'm new, and I'm emceeing, and they had a little dim light at the back of the Improvisation Comedy Club, and you could see somebody signaled something. I saw Rodney. So now this was what people waited for, where they would see all the comics, this from the Comedy Store, and they'd wait for, Robin to come in or whoever to come in. And so now I look, I said, wow. I said, hey, ladies and gentlemen, Rodney Dangerfield here. I said, Rodney, come on up here. I go like that. Rodney, come on up here like that. Now nothing. He didn't come up. The crowd's going nuts. And I go, hey, Rodney, you did it. And we dance a little bit. And finally comes up, does a set, blows the room out. Yeah. Nobody blew out the improv like Rodney. Pryor was close, but it was Rodney that really blew that room out. Yeah. So then I go back afterwards, and they go, hey, Rodney, that was great. And he goes, hey, Joe, I like you. You're a good kid. I like you. You're a good kid. He kept saying that. And he goes, but you can't just introduce me like that. There's no respect. No, he really said no respect. I go, what? And I'm looking at a big guy, one of my heroes, but I absorbed it. It was like fatherly advice. Yeah. He goes, you can't just say, come on up here. To this day, on the radio show or whatever I do, so kind enough to join us. Would you be so kind to join us on the radio? You're really good at it too, Kristian. God
Oh,
bless you for that, my brother.
thank you.
But Rodney taught me, man. I'll tell you, it's okay. It's all right. It's okay.
It's so good.
He was the best.
That's
I'll
so
tell
good.
you. And then we were best friends. Best friends. Rodney
I was going to say, because it seemed like, so there were two things. There's something that you said about Eddie, about the language on stage, and then I recently saw, even your impression is dead on. There was a guy that I saw. I don't know if you saw this viral video of this another comedian who does Rodney, and he talked about, there was a story that he said to Eddie. He's like, I don't know, kid, this cursing that you're doing, I'm not sure. And then apparently after Eddie blew up, they were at some event or something together, and they were taking a piss next to each other. And Rodney looks at him and goes, I was wrong. It seems like...
I remember, man, those Eddie Murphy days. We hung out, we were together all the time.
Yeah.
Saturday Night Live time. And then he was in Los Angeles, and he was playing the Universal Amphitheater, 6,000 people, right?
Yeah.
And then he's the guy that had a scrim on the stage, Eddie did. And then the crowd was there, and then Eddie would be in all leather, man. Eddie, I think Eddie actually made comedy rock and roll, So he would, and the scrim was a backlight, and then Eddie's silhouette would hit the scrim to 6,000 people. They went nuts. It was so classic. And then the scrim would come up, and there was Eddie like Elvis,
Yeah.
And he was great. So, but then, and I think Arsenio, this is what Arsenio used in his show after that. So Eddie would be like so raw, as you know, from Raw and from watching him.
Yeah.
And then I can remember distinctly, Kristian, we're backstage, just he and I, after all of the applause and the crazy and the laughter and everything, and Eddie's at the piano and he's tinkling at the piano, just he and I in the back in the dressing room, wondering where we're going to go next to hang out. And I was at the piano. I said, Ed, I said, you are so brilliant, man. You don't need why do you have to get dirty like that? You don't need to drop the F-bombs. I'm like the older brother.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I said, you really need that. I said, why do you do that? And he looks up and he goes, because they laugh. Like, and I couldn't really have an argument. I went,
right.
Okay,
right.
That's the end of it. Let's go out. Come on.
Yeah, because there's a way to do it, right? And I think that he kind of painted the way to be able to do that, because it was, as you mentioned in your book too, where Seinfeld earlier on in his career used it, but then stopped because he felt it was an easy laugh. But there's people that can make that work when they're not, like, when it isn't a crutch, right? You can do it. Like, look, I mean, I don't know, because you mentioned Eddie Murphy being the first rock star of comedy, and I tend to agree with you, because because you look at, like, when Andrew Dice Clay sold out the Garden in the first time he did that, right? Like that. Yeah. Eddie paved the way for that.
Yeah.
Like Eddie paved the way for that.
You're absolutely right. And then this was like, so it was those days, those post SNL days that Eddie and I were together all the time. And he was doing the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
And they said, Eddie Murphy's doing the Comedy Store. He's putting a set together. And so I would go there, and then I'd have to go. And it was so much fun to have a friend turn into Elvis. It was just fun. It was just wild. Because I'm like a geeky guy. I just want to work. Yeah. I'm like a working stiff. Sure. And my friend became Elvis, and it was so much fun.
Right.
Because I could vicariously live through him.
And he stayed your friend and didn't leave you. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And you could take a look. You'd know the look. The little shtick you would do. But he knew it, and he would go, like, when I went backstage at the Comedy Store, and it's all dark, it was all dark back there, and so finally I wrangle myself through a million security people and all the cameras and everything else, and I see him, and he sees me, and he does the Elvis pose. He just does an Elvis pose like that, man, like in full leather, like, thank you very much. And it was so hysterical and just plain so much fun, He knew it, but on stage he had the immense vulnerability. Eddie did, I thought, he really exuded that vulnerability and that a bit of humility through all the rawness,
Well, he brought that into his acting career, obviously, from the things that he was able to do. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I watched Delirious. Like the two that I snuck out the most was this guy. And that's from Carlin at Saturday Night Live. But there was Carlin at Carnegie was the one that brought me into it and said, "Whoa!" Like as you said in your book, there was a moment where you, as a kid, you were making people laugh, and you go, "Oh, that's it." I remember my friend showing me Carlin at Carnegie, going, "Oh my God, I want to do that." Like that's amazing. Wow. And I've never seen a guy. And I was like, I was maybe 9 years old when I saw. We weren't supposed to be watching that, and we saw it. It was, for me, it was Carlin, Eddie,
Yeah.
Robin Williams,
Yeah.
Pryor, Bill Hicks. Those were my those
Bill
were my guys.
Hicks,
Yeah,
that's great,
those
man. Look
those are
at
the
that.
guys. Yeah.
Hey, but you know what? You weren't even born when Carlin started, right?
Well,
You
and when
were,
he started, no. Well, I don't know. I mean, I was born in '75, so like,
no, yeah. Well,
yeah, he
let
was
me
around.
no, because he broke when I was in
Yeah,
college.
hippy dippy
And
weatherman, right?
boom,
Yeah,
FM and AM, his
yeah,
album.
yeah,
That we lived by that, lived by
yeah,
that. And he did one of the coolest. This is so great that we could talk like this because
yeah.
we could get into the weeds a little bit. One of the brightest things he ever did on stage, and I would do um, I would do that joke. We're not going to do the joke here, please, Christian. But
Okay.
he goes, hey, who is this? Jane. You remember? Do you remember that story in
Yeah.
one of the
I
albums?
do.
Look, we better not tell it because
Yeah.
it's so wrong.
Oh, that's all right.
But
Yeah.
but all those characters that
Yeah.
he would do, right? And the hippy dippy weatherman, and then he got up at Johnny Carson, and he had a stool, water, he's doing his bed, and I'm sure you know this, and he goes, I got to take a union break. Like that on live television.
Yeah.
On live television. And he stopped and he kind of looked away, far away, and he took a sip of the water and really did nothing and waited for about a minute like that. That was genius.
He's
That was
brilliant.
just genius.
He
Right?
he was absolutely brilliant. Even the other day, I was trying to tell my kids about it, and this is the way that he played on language and
Yeah.
everything that he would say. But even when we talk about hair, he's like, "Why do we say hair is fine? Why do we use the word fine? Fine. He goes, hair is fine." So good. But yeah, speaking of Carlin, speaking of that picture, he was did you see the Saturday Night Live movie that just came out with
No.
Oh, you didn't?
I should see it. I'm sorry. It's good, I heard. I heard it's pretty good.
I loved it.
Wow.
Look, I was going in. Look, I like Jason Reitman as a director.
Yeah.
I was going in as you'll know this, right? As when you do in the comedy club and you get the industry crowd and they're sitting there like, all right, let's see what do you got. So that was me. I was the industry guy going, okay, let's see if you can really. Who's your Chevy? Who's your Chevy? The Chevy was brilliant. I can't remember the actor's name, but he was brilliant. And the guy was playing Lorne because as well as I do that you can easily fall into they're just doing impressions. You got to encapsulate like the person.
That's right.
And they did.
That's
and it was the chaotic first night of it.
Yeah.
I would definitely for you, I would absolutely recommend that movie.
Yeah, I gotta see. I can't even believe it. I just tweeted out today because we did an interview, promoting the book for GQ, and GQ. I thought it was very bright. They said to every cast member, "Who was your favorite cast?"
Yeah.
And I said the original cast, and I just tweeted it out this morning. Yeah, you can't even compare. You can't even marginalize. It was the original cast. It was the Beatles. It was Frank Sinatra. It was everything all in one. Hard for people to understand it because we didn't have all the avenues of distribution now, and we didn't have all the access on our phones. This was it, and you had Belushi and Aykroyd and Chevy, and then of course Billy Murray later, but Gilda Radner. You forget how brilliant Gilda was, and what was painful, as you read in the book, and thank you for reading the book. But we had to replace that cast, Kristian. We had to replace that cast.
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. The stress of that. Yeah.
And the thing is, like I said in the book, I was working. I just want to work. I'm just a guy that just wants to work, And I was working. I was doing commercials, and I was doing Dr. Pepper commercials, and I was on stage emceeing at night and doing, I'm a pepper, he's a pepper, she's a pepper, we're a pepper, but they're sending me checks, man. I said, what are residuals? I like this business, and I'm going like, this is great. So then my agent, Chris Albrecht, for folks kind enough to watch, it's like the guy that put Larry David on the air, put The Sopranos on the air. He put Sex and the City on the air. I mean, he was like one of the legendary to this day producer, and he was the guy that ran the improv. We were all there. We would all play baseball together. We would go to my buddy John DeBelso's house for pasta. Larry David was there. Jerry Seinfeld was there. We would play in the Broadway Show League. We were all together like that. We're crazy. And then when we would go in, and Chris goes, they want to find out somebody they need a utility guy at Saturday Night Live. So I went and I auditioned through a friend, and they liked it. Then they hired me, and then, oh my gosh, I didn't want the job. Who wants that job? So it was Albrecht and I on the phone in my Ford Fairmont. I remember my light blue Ford Fairmont that Jerry Seinfeld said looked like a government car because it was so plain. Even
Right.
and I'd go and I don't know how. I guess I was it on the phone or I was just thinking whatever it was. I just got off the phone with him and I remember the conversation. And he said, "You have to do Saturday Night Live." And I said, "Chris, you can't replace the original cast.
Right.
It's going to be a nightmare." Hey, plus Kristian, I took a pay cut. I would make less money doing SNL than I was doing with the commercials.
Wow.
And I went back and forth, and but he won. He goes, "You're doing Saturday Night Live." I said, "Okay, I'll do Saturday Night Live." But the first 10 shows, my brother, oh my gosh,
Brutal, right?
oh,
Yeah.
it was.
Were you just miserable during that time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, Dick Cavett is one of the brilliant television interviewers of all time. He's a friend. And he said when he had to go up against Johnny Carson and when he would sleep at night, he was so rigid, just the top of his head and his heels would touch the bed. He was just so rigid,
Yeah.
trying to sleep.
Yeah.
It was awful. And it wasn't Gene Domanian's fault. It wasn't anybody's fault.
Yeah.
It was just impossible to replace Belushi and Aykroyd and Chevy.
And Lauren had left at that point, right?
Yes, everybody was gone.
Right.
We went upstairs. They cleaned everything out.
Yeah.
I was on the 17th floor, and they cleaned everything out. They handed it off to Gene. I didn't know what happened. I still don't know what happened. Did Lauren want to leave? Did they ask him to leave? I don't know what happened.
You still don't know what happened?
No.
Wow.
We can't figure out why would you ask Lauren to leave? Maybe Lauren stepped away. The answer's never been that's never been answered. That question is why did Lauren happen? But there we were, and then it was Gene who hired me and hired Eddie, and the cast that we had hired Gilly. How cool was that to have your friend from the comedy club working with you on SNL? I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, really cool.
And then they thought Eddie was too edgy, so they weren't going to put Eddie in sketches.
Wow.
And I had a campaign to Gene. She got it. The network didn't. I said, "This is the next Pryor." I said, "This kid is the next Pryor." I remember we read that word association sketch as you read, right?
Yeah.
Where he did Pryor, I did Chevy Chase.
Yep.
And I had to wait for a second. And we had, it was the suits. All the suits were watching. And Eddie and I are like in an office doing this audition for Eddie. And to myself, I said, "Oh, this is going to be the biggest guy that ever." So we pitched that to Gene. She got it. The network thought he was too edgy. So they made him a featured player. Isn't that the funniest thing? Like
crazy. Crazy.
Yeah,
crazy.
Like that.
It just shows you like the people who think that they know are usually the ones who don't. They don't ever know. So many. But think about that story though. What you just said to me, met all the people that has happened to that could have been an Eddie like, and I don't just mean with comedy. I'm talking about like with football, baseball, lawyers. Who knows? Just didn't have the shot or didn't have the opportunity at the time that Eddie did, and didn't have an advocate like Eddie did with you.
Well, thank you. It's great that you observed that, my friend, because the funniest cats. I had a conversation with Adam Carolla, and I was with Adam, and I said, the funniest cats out of the improv, out of the comedy club, they never surfaced. They never made it.
Right.
And then Adam said to me, he goes, everybody says to me, "Who's the funniest guy in the world?" And they think he's going to say Norm Macdonald. And he would go, "No, you never heard of the guys that I think are the funniest guys in the world." I know you were there too, Kristian. You see them
all the time.
Isn't that the scariest thing in the world?
I'm telling you,
how did we surface? Yet to me, the funniest cats in the world did not.
It's so
scary,
true,
right?
Yeah. So my buddy, he's still around, and he actually opens for Chris Rock and everything too. But I think he should be one of the biggest comedians of all time, and that's Rick Ingraham. Yeah. You talk about like crowd work and everything. I've never seen him. He just gets up there. He was a guy that did a set for a bit, didn't love what he was doing, felt like they told him, "You can't do crowd work, you got to just do your thing." And he said no. And for an hour, Joe, he just goes up for an hour and does crowd work and murders. He murders. He's the best. He's the best.
Yeah.
He's the best.
But you know what? The good thing about it, it's never too late. But I don't even mention the names, but I think of those names in the comedy club that used to blow out that room with the. I can remember the material like it was yesterday.
Yeah, right.
And then they didn't surface, and then also, and Larry David too. Larry was the guy that would get in fights with the audience. So he would go, and we would go. We're at the comedy club, like I said, it was true. We get up and they go, "Is Larry going up? Larry's going up." So the whole bar where we sat, that was a holding pen. We would all rush to the little, door area, the little frame with that led into the showroom, and everybody's crouching. What's Larry gonna do? And he would go after the audience member. Audience member would go after him, and it was just plain hysterical and
Yeah.
genius. By
Especially
the
when
way,
like when you can reference it now because we know what you can picture it because you know Larry David so well. But it's funny you say that too because he didn't pop until I mean as far as recognizable face until what 20, 30 years ago. I mean
yeah.
he was obviously very successful from doing Seinfeld and everything too. But he was the behind the scenes guy. He wasn't the Curb Your Enthusiasm guy.
He was like Larry David was. Everybody knew that he was a comic genius.
Right.
He didn't break. Then he wrote on Saturday Night Live for a year,
Yeah.
and I believe I was there. And he just never got the material on. Didn't feel comfortable. Then he did Fridays. But you're absolutely right because where I broke, I did about 4.5 years at the Improv, four
Yeah.
years, and then went on SNL. So that's a quick. That's a
Yeah.
quick, that's a quick, jump to national television. Larry took almost 20 years. Of course, once he hit with Jerry, they made it bigger than anybody. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but it's a great lesson. And in the book, and thank you for being hip enough to understand that it's survival, man.
Yeah.
It's like a survival story. Just hang in. Don't let the labels that are going to be put on you get you down. It's just onward and forward, as my father used to say, rest his soul, and it's all survival. You can hang in there, especially in a business like like entertainment. If you just hang in there. But you're absolutely right. I'm glad you said that. Translates to any business, any business at all, right?
And you got to find your people. That's what you got to do. You got to find your people, and you found your people. And as you were mentioning, jumping back to the Saturday Night Live stuff, to where you're in that stretch. You're like, I see, Chris, I was right. This is miserable. I can't do this. What pops? What changes? What moment to where you're like, oh, wait a minute, he was right. I was wrong. I had the patience. Now look at us.
Yeah, that's right. We hung in there, man. We
Yeah.
hung in there. The first 10 shows were tough, and then they took us off the air. And I'm thinking, like, I told Chris, I said, Chris, I told you, man, I told you it's not gonna happen. Then they did the whole, and again, this story has never really been told about the massacre of Saturday Night Live, that firing
Yes.
of everybody. So because we're up there in the 17th floor, Eddie and I were so cocky and carefree. And I kind of fed off of Eddie like that because he was like that, and it was fun to be around somebody.
Sure.
But we just didn't care. We had a set that we were supposed to do at the comedy, I think at the comic strip, like later that day. And we're in the office and we're sitting around. Everybody's getting fired, whacked, man.
Yeah.
The whack. Dick Ebersol came in, whacked everybody, and talented people. Gail Mathias, I remember their names. Denny Dillon and Risley, I remember their names. Whack, whack. When Gilly got fired, we went, whoa, man, they're gonna fire Gilbert Gottfried, man. What's up, Piscopo, Murphy? Come in the office like that, military like.
You thought it was over.
Yeah, you know what? We go in, we sit, and they sit Eddie and I together, and Ebersol's this big, tall, God bless him, waspy guy, and he's looking down, and he's got his arms crossed. He goes, well, Eddie and Joe, we've decided to keep you. And so me and Eddie go, that's great, Dick. Look, we got a spot at the comic strip down the road. We got to get going. Do you mind if we step? I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
Think about it. You think, oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Absolutely, sir. We went like this and we left. We didn't care. And I think that translated on TV. That reckless abandon.
100%. I mean, from the way you guys said, I told my dad, I'm talking to my dad, and he's asking, like, who you got coming up? Who you got coming up? I go, you're going to love this one, Dad. I got Joe Piscopo. He's like, you got Joe? I go, yeah. He goes, you got to ask him about Sinatra. I said, of course I will, because even the thing that when I can't even tell you how many times my dad and I laughed that you are blind as a bat. It was like we lost. So tell me about that when you're talking with Eddie in general about when you guys are coming up with ideas together and how you go. How do you know? Because you were just doing Frank because coming from an Italian family, idolizing him, doing the impression, knowing like at what point do you go? Wait, you know what? Let's do this.
Yeah, it was with Eddie. That's why I was considered I'm blessed because Eddie just would come up with ideas, and you would sit there. And I remember the offices. I remember the TV was on, and we didn't have phones, man. We just had the TV, and we had the VCR tapes that I used to learn my impressions on. Were like 3/4 inch big monsters. Everything was clunky. It was great, but Eddie would say things like we were watching Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
And Eddie would say, and I'd be sitting right with him, and he would say, I got to do a street version of that. I said, what are you thinking? He goes, I'm going to do Mr. Robinson. I'm going to do a
Yes.
street version of that. Like that. One writer in the room, no names mentioned,
Yeah.
said, it'll never work. And I looked at that writer and I said, this guy does not know Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
I said, Eddie said, this is going to be a classic and epic. And Eddie made it that. Then he goes, Murphy would go like this. He'd go, I'm going to do Buckwheat. Now there, it stopped me.
Right.
And I'm going like, I'm sorry. He goes, I'm going to do Buckwheat. I go, Ed, it could be a little racist. I just say it.
And that was in the early 80s.
Yeah. And I'm a kid of the 60s,
Right,
civil rights movement.
Right.
And I'm all like, no, you can't do that, man. It's too racist. He goes, he was like, I'm doing it. And another thing I remember, I'll get to Frank Sinatra second if I may.
Yeah.
No, but he go do that. Then he's shooting Shady Places in Philly. And I was hanging out with him, with the Danny Aykroyd, the great Danny Aykroyd, who we all idolize and worship. And Eddie goes, after Buckwheat caught on, he goes, you know what? He goes, I'm gonna have, I swear to goodness gracious, he goes like this, I'm gonna have Buckwheat assassinated. Like that. Like what? I do it again. We're in the hotel room. And I go, Eddie, please don't do that. I was like an older brother. And I was like, and I'm a worrywart, and Eddie could care less about anything.
Right.
And I go, I worry about you. You can't not with it. Please don't. You right that? No, it's gonna be funny. You're gonna be Ted Koppel. We're gonna play the loop over. We went to Barry Blaustein, David Sheffield, our key writers, and Eddie knew he had an incredible, fun to watch, and yes, a comic genius, but what an instinct in this kid, if he was 21 years old when he was doing all this, Kristian,
right.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to agree with you and then say just to watch how you guys would kind of work off each other and understand because look, it is the fact that you both had each other there, like because you survived the massacre, you're able to bounce back and forth, you know each other well enough. Like if you don't have somebody like that creatively, I'm talking about even the stuff that I do, it's like you've got to be able to bounce back and forth and have somebody, because if you don't, it is yes, you are right that it is a cutthroat business. It is, how do I get myself to this point? But if you don't have someone to bounce back and forth and help you create that energy, as we were talking about before, it does not work. And you guys kind of found each other.
Thank you for being hip enough to dig that, man. I'm gonna tell you something, because that's why I left the show, and Eddie left, and I loved Timmy Kazurinsky and Mary Gross. What a great cast. Jimmy Belushi was there, but at the end, when Eddie left, because of what you just said, and thank you, I'm gonna have to borrow that if you don't mind, my friend.
Please,
because it's so true. It was that back and forth. It was your brother. It was in battle, and when he's going, I'm going, this is not going to be really fun anymore. And so that's why I left. But thank you for bringing that up. But with Frank Sinatra, I would do. I was at the comedy club, and I would do the improvisation, West Side, 44th and 9th, and I would do a kind of a parody of Frank Sinatra. I would do "Lady Is a Tramp," but I would never end the song a very Andy Kaufman style. That's why the lady. That's why the lady. That's why that lady. I can keep going. And until it got so ridiculous, it was funny. So I did that. Then at the audition, as you could see, they said, you do Frank Sinatra, you do Frank Sinatra. And then I did an impression of Frank Sinatra. So now they said, we go in, the show's really not working, we need Frank Sinatra. And I fought it. And I said, I can't do it. I'll tell you why. It's not, it's out of respect. Your father will understand this, Kristian. It's out of respect. He's a North Jersey Italian-American. He's a hero to all of us. And I can't do it. And they kept saying, Joe, you got to do it. So I'm like a good soldier. I said, okay, if I do it, I'm going to do it with respect. I got to do it with respect. And so I wrote Mr. Sinatra a letter. And I said, Mr. S, this is done with respect, and we're going to have some fun on Saturday Night Live. If anything bothers you in any regard, I will cease and desist immediately. And I sent it to his lawyer, Mickey Rudin, at the time. And I never heard anything, man. I never heard anything. And I started to do it. The character started to grow a little bit. We were edgy, but we still were respectful. And that was the time where I got an invitation, and I knew I got the okay, an invitation to the Friars Club to a Dean Martin roast, man.
Wow.
I know that was so what. So I remember going into Eddie's office, and I had the embossed Friars Club envelope to Joe Piscopo, and it was Dean Martin roast, and Frank Sinatra was the MC. So now I got to come up with material for that. But I was so nervous. But it was great to go in and meet Sammy Davis Jr.
That's the first time you met any of those guys, Frank included?
That's
Wow.
exactly right.
Wow.
Exactly right. And then I saw Dean Martin,
Yep.
and then Angie Dickinson, and all the people from my generation when I was a kid that I used to idolize. And then Dick Cavett, my buddy Cavett,
Mm-hmm.
took me through the back room where Mr. S was saying hi to people. And then, but I didn't know where Cavett was telling me. He goes, Joe, you got to come with me. You got to come with me. So during this Friars Club, and it was like nuts, you know. It was everybody who was anybody in show business, and he dragged me through this room to this back room, and then I didn't know what I was doing, and I look up, and Cavett had led me right to Frank Sinatra,
Wow.
like right there. Now this is my father. This is my father, you know, and I love that you mentioned your father because my father was my hero, and he told me about Frank Sinatra, and now if you're gonna do entertainment, this is the king of entertainment, man. He's Italian, you know. So now I'm staring right at Frank Sinatra, and Cavett goes, Joe Piscopo, Frank Sinatra. And Mr. S, very cool. He just kind of went, hey, how you doing? Very nice,
Yeah.
warm
Yeah.
handshake. And I froze. I couldn't say a word.
Yeah.
So now, and I'm telling you exactly what happened. I kind of take dramatic license on stage a little bit and change it just to speed it up a little
Sure.
bit. But we go to you'll dig this
Yeah.
because we're on the dais, and I'm like at the top of the dais. Frank Sinatra's there, Dean Martin's there, Sammy's there, Dick Shawn, we used to idolize Dick Shawn because he was like so wacky. And he was like a comic, Milton Berle, you know,
Oh.
like guys like that, Red Buttons, all those guys, all
Wow.
those guys.
Wow.
And I'm up there, and then I can watch Mr. Sinatra, and he goes, here's a kid. He's really talented. He does me. He's Italian. And please welcome Joe Piscopo. Slow motion. Frank Sinatra saying, Joe Piscopo. It
That's
was slow
cool.
motion in my head.
Yeah.
And I went, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So I got up there, went there. I did a little with Dean Martin. Set wasn't great. The only thing I did good, I went right to Mr. S. And that worked good. 2,000 people. And I said, Mr. S, I like the way you say the word you, like that. And he's looking at me. Listen, because he has a Jack Daniels in his hand like this. Your father appreciates. And he's got a cigarette. He's looking at me like this. You know, like it's Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
He's like this with the smoke coming up and everything, you know. And I go like this. I go, I like the way you say the way you say you. I go, I don't stand the ghost of a chance with you. I do like that. The crowd got a big laugh, big laugh.
Yeah.
He doesn't move. He doesn't move.
Okay.
He's looking up the other day. He goes, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And I said, hey, can I call you Frank? He went, no. Like, that was great. Biggest laugh of the night, you know?
That stays
And he
in
goes
there.
like, don't mess with me,
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah.
And the rest, you know, was a love affair ever since.
That's
He
great.
used to call me the vice chairman of the board, man. Is that wild?
That's,
You
I
know?
mean, but look, I mean, that's all about just making things happen, right? And knowing,
Yeah.
having the confidence
Yeah.
in yourself and saying, like, you know, you get
Oof.
a chance to meet your idol, and be able to impersonate your idol in front of him while he's sitting there looking at you. I mean, what a story, what a great memory that you've had.
Oh,
Yeah.
Then he would invite, and that whole era was like, it wasn't like now. You would get a call from his publicist, Mr. Sinatra needs you here.
Yeah.
And you don't go, your instinct is to go, where is it?
Right.
Huh? When am I going?
Right.
Well, no, let me just check. No, when Frank Sinatra called, you went, got it, done, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Whatever it was. And I didn't even know you were doing.
Yeah.
Then one time they invited me out to Los Angeles to do the show Solid Gold, which you could find somewhere on YouTube. And then the one question I asked, they said, Mr. Sinatra wants you to come out and do the impression out there on Solid Gold and to sing the record you had, that I Love Rock and Roll record. I went, done. I'm there. And then I paused. I went, in makeup?
Right.
Like
Right.
that.
Right.
I said, and they go, in makeup. So I bought my makeup, man. I did Mr. S. We used to call him the old man out of respect,
Sure,
you know, like
sure.
And I did him just like right next to him, and he was great about it. Oh, crazy
man,
time.
what a great So that's incredible. That alone. So, and was there ever a time where he was just like, hey, you know, I love everything you're doing. I want you to. So that one thing that you did, that might have been too much.
Never did. No.
Never, huh?
No, it's a great question. No, never.
Okay.
Always nice, always fatherly,
Yeah.
always respectful. Hey, Frank, Tommy Dreesen, my buddy, great Tommy Dreesen, goes, hey, Frank, you know Joe Piscopo. Do I know Joe Piscopo? I know him longer than his father's known him. He says it like that.
Yeah.
That's a tip of the hat to my old man, see?
Yeah.
And he was always, I can't tell you, and he would look at you sometimes and you couldn't read him.
Mhm.
And he would blink his eyes and you would think, I hope he likes what I'm doing here. But the one time, cut way back before I met him, I tell the story. It is true where a security guard sneaked me into a rehearsal with Count Basie and Frank Sinatra in what was, I think, the Today Show studio at the time. And I was at NBC.
Yeah.
They were playing Radio City Music Hall, and the security guard said, "Come on downstairs. You'll get to see Frank Sinatra rehearsing with Basie."
Yeah.
So I sneaked in, and a private door, and there was just a piano. And then and Frank Sinatra walks in. This was before I met him. And he walked in up to the piano. They bring Count Basie in. I'm watching Count Basie. And if and this is, the music is just to this day, Kristian.
Yeah.
It's it's classic Basie and Frank Sinatra. And I'm watching them rehearse. There, Mr. S lifted his head and he looked right at me. And he didn't know who I was. I don't think he knew who I was. I was on the show. I had an afro.
Okay.
Man, I was wearing like freaking corduroy. You know what I mean? I dressed like a bum. And because I just and he blinked his eyes, tilted his head back, looked at me like that, stared at me. I froze. And then you know what he did? Put his head right back down to the music. It's like he calculated who I was, what it was.
Realized
gave me the blessings right there.
Oh,
I don't think
great.
people know that. It was right there. And then I sneaked out. I got the hell out of there.
Believe me, wow, that alone, what a great story that is. And then so you hit that success, obviously, with the stuff that you are doing on Saturday Night Live, the stuff you're doing with Eddie on Saturday Night Live, the Sinatra stuff, and then as you mentioned earlier, Eddie takes off, leaves the show, and you're like, yeah, I think I'm done. Also, is that the same kind of conversation at that point when you decide you want to leave? Does Chris say, "Don't leave yet, don't go yet," or do you see? Does he say, "Yeah, it's time"?
You know, I'll tell you stuff. Yeah, I got to compliment you on your style here. You are really good.
Thank you.
You are really freaking good. I got to tell you.
Thank you.
And you know, I tell you, I'm old. I know these things. God bless you for what you're doing.
I appreciate.
But I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to skirt this issue carefully, okay? Because I don't like to say anything.
Take your time.
And I didn't write it in the book because I don't like to nail anybody.
Sure.
And the audio, by the way, if you get to what the audio book is a little more honest than the book is, you know, because I dance a little bit, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was a contentious, and I say this with respect, but I think you're one of the few people I could probably be honest with. In this book on Saturday Night Live and leaving, there was a management group we're all a part of, right? Rollins and Jaffe. It was like Bill Maher was telling me, you've been knighted. It's Rollins and Jaffe. And I was Dick Cavett, Woody Allen, Robert Klein, Billy Crystal, Robin Williams. And it was like all the comedians. Great. So Ebersol's there and he wants Robin on the show. So
to be a regular or
no, good question. No, to guest it.
To be a guest.
To guest. He wants Robin to guest.
Okay.
So now this is the last year. So then I go, all right, sure, no problem. He goes, so the management team, and rightly so, says, because they really were top notch. You bring Billy, you got to put Billy in the show, Billy Crystal, because Billy had done a variety show then, and Robin was like, you know, the guy. So they kind of went to me to be the Henry Kissinger, forgive the old reference, but I had to like mediate this, where I went to Ebersol, I said, you got Robin, but you got to put Billy on.
Yeah.
And then, so now, again, like I did with Eddie, I said, it's Billy Crystal, Dick. I said, you got it, because he wasn't sure. He just wanted Robin and all cost.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's ironic. So I went there and I said, you got to put Billy on. I remember like yesterday, how I did that just to go out on the limb like that. So he goes, let's put Billy in. The rest is history. Billy and I went in. Billy and I he did Sammy. I did Frank Sinatra. And Billy did the whole thing, so which it really worked out. But then Robin, of course, crushed it like that. Then that was toward the end. And then they brought in, I kind of felt I lost connection when Eddie said he was leaving, because I didn't feel part of that group. And I hope I'm making myself clear, because it was like a clique in school.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they were great. And then they were going to hire Billy. They were going to hire Chris Guest. They were going to hire Martin Short. And Robin was always available. They didn't need me there. So, and Eddie was leaving. To your brilliant point earlier, who was I going to bounce my stuff off of? Yeah. Where would I have fun? How would I have those incidental little private laughs with
your buddy?
And I felt, and I felt like, okay, the guys are good. And I had a little part in that, you know. Billy didn't need me, no, you know, honestly, but I kind of played a little part in getting him on the show there. And it was great. I said, I got to walk. I'm not part of this group. And I didn't feel part of that group. So I split. That was the real impetus. And they offered me, I remember 25,000 a week like
Okay.
that, which was pretty good money back then,
Yeah. Yeah.
They said, Joe, we got 25 grand a week, you'd be there. And I'm going, respectfully, you don't need me. But it was that. It wasn't bittersweet or anything. It was just like, you know when you're at the end of a run, I think.
Right.
Don't you, Kristian?
Well, I mean, that's the magical question, right? Because some people feel like, yes, I do, and then now that look at fighters. Fighters think that, I got one more in me. I got one more in me, and then they come back and they keep it, and then they get knocked out. Like, well, that was the bad one. Let me go back for another one. Then they get knocked out again. So that is always the magic question of when do I walk away at what time. You seem to do it at the right time. Now, when you did Johnny Dangerously, though, you were still on SNL, yes? Because all right, so I mentioned my dad already in this. I got to mention him again, and I know that you talk about that movie briefly in your book. Now I know that it didn't do as well as everyone thought it was going to do. You mentioned that in the book too. It eventually wound up making money. Joe, I love that movie. I love that movie, and I'm surprised that because you mentioned that Michael Keaton says in the book that someone says, "Oh, I love Johnny Dangerously." Do you not get quoted all the time of my mother kicked me in the balls once? Once. I mean, I still do that today.
Yeah. And you know what? You Fargan bastages, you
Right.
ice hole.
It was so ahead of its time. It was so ahead of its time. It is hilarious. That movie's hilarious, and what a cast!
I know. You know what? I should have laid into it. I didn't because they said you want to do Johnny Dangerously, and I read the script and it was fun, and I said let's go do it. I did. I took the summer. We went to Malibu. And hearts out and love to everybody in Malibu going through what they're going through now for sure. But we're out there and on the set with Michael Keaton, who is spectacular by the way. Funny, he is funny.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a funny guy.
I was happy to hear in your book that you guys got along pretty well.
He was just. It was tough getting through his takes because he was so funny.
Yeah.
So then, and I would always goof around. And then, so I did it, but I guess I should have written about it more because then I think they expected it. And then, so I remember they had a billboard on Hollywood Boulevard with me with the gun, and I remember they had smoke coming out, and it was all big, and it just didn't do as well as people thought, but it might have been ahead of its time because now. Everybody sees that film, and a shout out to Amy Heckerling.
Yes.
I wrote about this in the book. I said, these are dumb things that you say. So I can remember when I was on the set and somebody came over from the Hollywood Reporter and they said, "Hey, Joe, what do you think? You're at the same set as Fred Astaire danced or something like that."
Yeah.
And I go, "Yeah, but I'm working in the studio where Milton Berle was." It was a snarky comment.
Yeah.
What you got to say early on is, "I'm so honored to be here."
Right.
The Rodney rule.
Yeah.
I should have said, "So honored to be here." And then I think I said some things where there was some inappropriate things in the film, and I mentioned, you know what? You don't even talk about it. I know now. Now. If you're in a project, just stay positive. Like I was supposed to. This is the best. Vanity Fair. They did an interview, and I said, "Vanity Fair." I said, what are they going to do? I had the greatest chat with the guy from Vanity Fair. But what's the subject matter? The 5 worst sketches of Saturday Night Live. I said, guys, can you just? Do you have to go negative like that?
Right.
Can you always take the high road, which I should have done. But in retrospect, Amy Heckerling shot a brilliant movie. Norman Steinberg, all the funny things the late great Norman Steinberg wrote. Keaton was just wonderful. Mary Lou Henner was so fun. Listen, John Travolta would come on the set with Mary Lou. It was great. But the guy that I think stole the movie was Richard Dimitri as Maroney.
Oh, he was so funny in that.
How brilliant was that?
And he popped up. You know, it's so funny. He popped up in Let It Ride with Richard Dreyfuss at one point, and I said, "Oh my God, it's Maroney." But he's not. But he's not as Maroney. But I'm telling you, that movie was great, and the fact that you like, and because I think it's you and Keaton kind of back and forth. The way you got to. As I mentioned, fighting, you've got to be able to trade punches with Keaton in order that from the role that is, and you guys do it. You just kind of trade those bars with Peter Doyle and everything he's doing in there. Oh my God,
Peter Doyle, he was great. He was the great.
Got my dork in my hand.
And I tell you too, and I think I wrote about it in the book when they hung me on the hook, when Michael hung me on the hook.
Yeah,
and I it was. I'm trying to think what the camera was. It was 35 millimeter. My gosh, back in the day, and they had the lines were going back and forth, and Michael and I going back and forth, and he goes, and he was supposed to grab me and then put me on the hook. So
Yeah.
it meant that I had an apple box behind me,
Yeah.
an apple box that I had to back into, that I had to step on, with my right foot and lift myself up as Michael lifted me up.
Yeah.
And I had a harness on with a little hole in the back of my suit, and we had to hit that hook with that harness.
man.
And I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
So now Michael and I are doing it, and Amy comes over and she goes, "Guys, not working. I just need it more forceful. It's not reading forceful on camera." And we said, "All right." I looked at Michael. I said, "Just go for it." And Keaton, I tell you, I can't say enough. He really is a great actor,
Yeah.
and he's a great guy.
Yeah.
And he goes like this. They go, "All right, action." He hit me. Kristian hit me so hard, he knocked the wind out of me.
Really?
It's in the take. The take we used.
Yeah.
He hit me here. Oh, and I went, oh, you can hear. And he lifted me up, and I stepped up, boom, and we hit the hook. Now I got to stay. I can't mess around with this because we got the tape. And he goes, and then he says something, and I go, "You shouldn't hang me on a hook, Johnny. My mother hung me on a hook once, my father, whatever it was." And then he opens the door. Now don't forget, that's all one take. And now I like keeping the finger up and then looking at it.
Oh, I love it.
Then now don't forget, I'm hanging on the hook. and he's got to leave. And then somebody shuts the door, and I come back. And something fishy's going on, right? And how I kept straight, I have no idea.
It's the best.
No idea.
Tom, I'm gonna watch that movie. I think this weekend. So all right, so you have that one that does, like you said. I think that, that's what as I mentioned in the intro, when you wrote the Blue Collar Entertainer, the memoirs of it. And I think that story, what you just told there about how, when you're in your youth and you go, you're just used to talking to your friends the way you do, and you say, you know what? I don't know if they should have put that bit in there. I don't know.
Exactly.
You're just having a conversation, but the way you're learning, because now you're seasoned vet, you know what to say. Like, oh, wait a minute, you got to be careful because they can use your words against you. You can do that. You don't know that. There's things that I've done. I'm like, oh no, I shouldn't have done that. It's part of it as you're life in general. The mistakes that you make are some of the reasons that because had you not made that mistake, your thought process doesn't go in the thought process that it eventually did. Your thought process might have gone somewhere else, and you might still be making those same mistakes, if no one called you out on it. So, but you do, and you wind up you start doing you leave Saturday Night Live, and you start doing some other movies. I'm curious, though, was there ever talks with Eddie and some of the movies that you were going to appear? What movies did you almost appear that you didn't?
I go back and I love your thought process, and I'm being brutally honest on the show, where on your show here, which I appreciate, and I'm going to talk about Eddie and the project that we had, which I love. But when we were doing Saturday Night Live, and then Eddie said, he goes, in the middle of it, I just shot 48 hours because he was coming and going on the set. He goes, "I want you to come see the screening." So he took me and Eversole, the producer, to go see Eddie. Of 48 hours, and now we're all relatively only in the business literally a couple of years, and we sat at the screening, me and Eddie and Dick Eversole, and they did a rough cut of 48 hours, and I saw Eddie jump off that screen and be magnificent. And you know what, Kristian, you either got it or you don't. It's as simple as that. And film is a whole nother ball game. You either the camera loves you and you're there, or you're not. And Eddie was there in every aspect. And I saw that. I said, wow. And when I do a character, when I did Johnny Dangerously, if I do a character, or even if I do Law and Order, which is a creative show. It's as creative as any film show, the Law and Order. And I would get if I do a character, I'm okay. As myself, I never feel comfortable, So I knew the limit. But again, if I knew then what I know now, I would just do characters. I would just do, third, fourth lead characters, because that's what I do. I'm a character actor, for crying out loud. I don't have, or never had, in my opinion, the star quality that I could see in Eddie Murphy like that. Magnificent to watch. So much fun to be with, But you got to know what you are and who you are. So that was the thing. But the one thing that I do regret is Eddie and I came up with a concept called Fountain of Youth. And it was supposed to be two guys that are old. We were going to be makeup, and really old guys, like our two Jewish old guys that we would do sometimes, and that Eddie does. And then we were going to go. We found a Fountain of Youth, which made us young, which we would be ourselves. So which meant we could rob banks, as youth,
Right.
and then as the Fountain of Youth wore off, we would be old and no one could ever find us. It was
Right.
like that was the premise of it. It's called Fountain of Youth, and it was Eddie and I in like a buddy film. So now Eddie's shooting, I think Beverly Hills Cop up in the Hollywood Hills. I'm staying in Beverly Hills at a hotel, and I'm writing the treatment for Fountain of Youth. And I wrote it, and then I would drive up. And I go through, and Eddie had an entourage at that point,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
great.
yeah.
It was great. Kristian, it was so much fun.
I'm
It
sure.
was, I mean, and then he goes, "All right, I gotta go back on the set." He go on the set. It looked like, a presidential, motorcade.
Yeah,
It was
right.
great
Yeah,
to
I can
watch.
imagine.
Great.
I can imagine.
Oh, so, but we came up with that. Dang, man, that was funny. It was a funny,
Yeah.
and we never, for some reason, got it made. And we never got it made. But I would have loved to have done that with Eddie. So yes, we did talk about that.
Okay.
And yes, we did. That was the film. Fountain of Youth was
Fountain
the
of
name of the
Youth.
film.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Man. And,
Yeah.
and you guys have a pretty good relationship to this day?
You know what? When I see him,
Yeah.
this was like I wrote in the book. There was one thing every time something wouldn't work out, if a sketch we didn't think was working, Eddie would do we had a little thing, and he would call it like the stink look, where he would just go, "Hey, we make this sound." It's hard. Forgive me. It's hard to describe.
Yeah.
In an interview, but Eddie would go like this, and it would just crack me up. If something wasn't working, he would do a really funny, where he'd lift his lip up and just see his teeth, and he would go, "Bah," like just like, and, like it meant
Yeah.
that really didn't work. That running joke forever.
Yeah.
So every time, and he would do it in the middle of a sketch on SNL, like the sketch wasn't working,
Yeah.
just to make me laugh.
Sure.
So I didn't see him for a while. When I saw him at the last reunion 10 years ago, when I had not seen him for a while, and we hugged. I said, "How are you?" And I hugged him. I held him tight, my buddy from all those years ago. And in my ear, he goes,
Oh, that's great.
Never forgot it.
Oh, I love that. I love it.
So I haven't seen him. No, I haven't seen him. We sometimes, but I will see him out there, here and there. But man, those days,
Yeah.
those days were really, I must say, in retrospect, after the tough, like it's like the way life works. We
Yeah.
went through such hell to try to replace that brilliant original cast. But then those 4+ years with Eddie were really magnificent, and just, you know what, you can't take that away, baby. That was just gold.
Well,
Comedy gold.
there's so much that you let people in to this book, and those types of stories you can get, and times 1,000. I really encourage people to check it out. Again, it's Average Joe, the memoirs of a blue collar entertainer, Joe Piscopo. I don't want to keep you. You've been so generous with your time.
Oh, I love it. Listen, you should call it. I'd love to have you're living in New York now.
I live in Long Island. I would love to. I know that originally we were supposed to do this in studio, and we just didn't work out. But I'd love to meet you into the city one time.
It would be my honor, man. You're you know what, like we say, we old people say, you're a good kid. You're a good kid.
Thank you.
You get it. You're very talented, my friend. Come on the radio, because we could have some really fun discussions, I think.
I would appreciate it, and I'd be honored. Joe, thank you so much. This means so much more to me than you can possibly imagine. So thank you for being here today, and good luck with everything, with the book and everything.
I'll give your dad my best.
I will.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank
Thank you so much.
How about that? Joe Piscopo, for the respectful people in the audience, which was everybody who was watching. How great was that? The people, the comedians, the people who follow comedy, and the stand-up comedy fans and Saturday Night Live fans, I think that was a kind of a gift for you guys. It was a lot of fun to be able to talk to him for that long, to get those stories. It was pretty great. So I'm glad. One of the things that, like I said, there was only one that I saw, and maybe this is the old school person. I mean, it's just a matter of respect. I told you guys, this is the store where we are right now. It's a store, and I hope that this is my store, right? I would or my house. Say it's my house. This is my house. And I invite you guys into my house every day. And I want you guys to be guests. And I want you guys to enjoy yourselves. And I want you to kick your feet up. I want you to be able to enjoy yourselves and have a good time. But if somebody came into your house and starts disrespecting another guest in your house, you're going to throw that person out on their ass. And that's what I did. There's somebody who just was one one comment, bad comment about the great Joe Piscopo. And I don't care if the person has been here every day. You got to show respect to people like that. He's the reason why that there's a lot of different things that you were able to do on television because of the stuff that he and Eddie did on TV and other things too. So he's got to show respect. As Rodney said, got to give some respect. Great impression he did, by the way. Anyway, that was a lot of fun for me. You guys had put some questions in there and some just support in general. So that's what we're going to do now. Let's shoot. You know what I realized? Before we do that, can't do that just yet. Got to tell you guys real quick about our good friends over at DraftKings. And I've told you before about DraftKings and I think, sure, in Factor. I told you about Factor. How about both? Here you go. DraftKings, baby.
Hey.
That is right. And Buffalo. That's right. Everybody's favorite slot game. It is live on DraftKings Casino. You got to hit the reels wherever and whenever to play for Wild Western wins. New players can play $5 to get a spin on the mystery wheel for a shot at up to $2,000 in casino credits. You got to download the app, and then you sign up with that code Harloff. Join the Stampede with Buffalo on DraftKings Casino now. The crown is yours. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER in Connecticut. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. 21 plus. Physically present in Connecticut, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia. Only void in Ontario. Eligibility restrictions apply. One per new customer. Play $5 and spin the wheel to receive between $10 and $2,000 in non-withdrawable casino credits for select games that expire in 168 hours. Terms at casino.draftkings.com/promos. Ends February 16th, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. So thank you to DraftKings. Factor is great because if you want to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved. They're ready to heat in 2 minutes so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. I can tell you right now, for me, I got some in the fridge. As soon as I'm done with this, I am fueling up. I'm going to be eating Factor. You got over 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week. It's easy to pick meals that are tailored to your goals. It can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfast, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-ons. Reach your goals this year with ingredients you can trust and convenience that can't be beat. I love it. That chicken one right there, they sent that, and the chicken is so fresh, it's tasty, absolutely enjoy it. And there's even one called known as like lasagna. Got on my mom right away. It was really good. You got to eat smart with Factor. You get started at factormeals.com/Kristian50off. Use that code Kristian50off. You get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That is the code Kristian50off at factormeals.com/Kristian50off. You get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's Factor. All right. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen. As I've told you many times over, both DraftKings and Factor. So, all right, let's get to your questions. Not a lot of them today, but nonetheless, still very, very thankful. And we'll get into those questions, and then we'll call it a day. I think spending a day with Joe Piscopo was pretty fun anyway. Ewok, what up, buddy? These films always cost $1 billion due to the dinosaurs, but their quality hinges on the human characters. They don't cost. Oh, coast. Sorry. These films always cost $1 billion due to the dinosaurs. That's true. But their quality hinges on the human characters. That's true. Just from the trailer, I prefer ScarJo, Mahershala, and Jonathan Bailey to Chris Pratt. I don't think it's fair to Chris Pratt as much as it was to the writing of that. But I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you at all. I actually agree with you, and I said as much in my trailer reaction. I think that it's all about, look, we've been to that island. We've been with a team that thinks they have it easy. They know they shouldn't go, but then it all goes to shit, and then they start getting chased around by the dinosaurs. We've been there. Like every single movie is that. The question is, what's done differently as far as the scares go, as far as the tension? And why do we care about these characters? And do we care if any of them get eaten? That's the question. And if they make you care about the characters, then look, there's sometimes that you don't give a crap about, like in the Kong and Godzilla movies. I don't care who the humans are. It was great that they had Rebecca Hall and Dan Stevens in there. I think that helped, but you don't care about them, about the humans. And you just want to see the UFC fight between the two of them, where they're fighting other monsters. That's the draw. In this, yes, the dinosaurs are the draw, but they rely on the characters having an interesting story. So I agree with you. I agree with you very much so. Thank you, Derek, doing a bunch of these. Derek is back, and he has been crushing lately. I don't know if anybody's touching Roxy's record at all, and this week in general. So it should be like 235 or something. DG, it's almost been a decade, and the biggest unsolved mystery of the MCU continues. Who put the coffee grounds in the disposal in Captain America Civil War? I know, it's so funny that it's fresh now, because we've been watching it. And so I saw somebody in the live chat. Don't worry. I actually just sent this to Sam too. I said, I'm in the middle of a Joe Piscopo interview, and people are asking about your reaction to Infinity War. We recorded it yesterday, and it'll be out on Friday. It's already sent off to the editors. It'll be up and ready on Friday morning. And there will be no reaction on Saturday from the MCU, because I'm just going to let the Infinity War sit for the weekend. My Squid Game episode 2 reaction will be out a little later today. And then I think on Saturday, the only thing that might actually come out, if I go to see Paddington in Peru, which I probably will, I'll probably do my ad of the theater for that one. But I don't know who put the coffee grounds in there. It's a good call. We still never found out. He was all pissed off about that, and we never found out. Mike Joyce, fingers crossed that we get dino-human hybrids. Please, no. Please, no. We're looking, and then they can cross with the Alien franchise. Justin Fountain, it's a new island never seen before. It's not a new island, but it's an island dino rejects. A rich family with side story based on interviews. It's not a new island, because they show it in the in that trailer that they said this is where the original island where the research was done it's not a new island. If it is, then it's too confusing and stupid. Yeah, it's not. Clarify that, Justin, because I'm pretty sure that they said in that trailer that it wasn't. Anthony Robo, hey Kristian, the content you put out with Matt Serra is amazing. Hope you guys put out more stuff. Thank you. Yeah, Matt's to no one's surprise, he's a dedicated dude. That's why he won the freaking UFC welterweight championship, because he's disciplined. And there's times where you're working with people and they're like, oh yeah, I want to get this done, and I really wanted this to happen, and they don't put in the work. Like, how come it's not working out? So you don't put in the work. And it's not Matt. Matt's here every time we're supposed to record. He's there. He's texting me, hey, here's my next. So this is what I'm doing. This is what I want on. This is what I want to try to do. Can you add any shorts for me? And I feel bad because I don't have enough manpower yet to do everything. God bless again Luke, who's been helping with the thumbnails for that show. But and I honestly think that Luke's just doing it because he knows how overwhelmed I am, and he's helping me out with those. But it's been great, and we have a lot of clips on that channel that haven't been released yet. I've got like 60 clips sitting in the getting ready to just drop them all in the way that he did for Frank Mir. We're gonna have a barrage of them. So I'm glad that you're enjoying that channel, because it's great. I think he's gonna hit 20,000 subscribers pretty soon. His episode with GSP was incredible. It was so surreal just sitting there while the two of them were talking. Thank you, Derek. Derek's just coming in and helping out, as always, as he's been doing. He is back. Derek is back. Derek the Great. Trey Porter, I had a nice debate with my friends over this. Who was the bigger movie star at their peak? Tom Cruise or Will Smith? Also, for me, Erin Brockovich was the best Julia Roberts ever looked in a movie. I won't go that far. I'll say she looked hot in it. She looked really hot and Closer. Obviously, Pretty Woman. But I think those are the two for sure. Oh, and then Mystic Pizza. Mystic Pizza is probably the hottest she ever looked. Okay. As far as the bigger movie star at their peak, man, that's tough because Will Smith was such a box office draw. I still would say Tom Cruise, but I wouldn't dispute anybody if they said Will Smith. But I'd still say Tom Cruise. Yeah, in his peak, I'd still say Tom Cruise. Okay, Justin, I like the genetic mutant and love the exploration of Indian dark history of failed genetic experiments. It's building upon what was established in JP and also Fallen Kingdom. Sure, I mean, look, if you, I don't like the monster movie stuff when it comes to it. I like the idea that we're just trying to manipulate stuff, and I guess that could be the counter argument. It's like, yeah, we tried to manipulate and try to create life, but because of it, we created this kind of abomination. And I get it. I don't want it to turn into a full-on monster movie, and that's what it feels like the last few did. But I guess it depends on how it's executed, right? So let's see how it's executed. And again, Justin, thank you very much. Very kind to who's calling me? Come my way. It's got to be. So I'm watch this. This is what I'm going to do, guys, because I've told her so many times, but she never remembers. Hey, honey, I'm on the air. How you doing?
You said you go on the air at 1.
I am on 1, and we're still on the air, and we got about half an hour left.
It's 2:30.
Yeah, 1.
You're usually done by now.
Nope, never done by now.
Well, I think you are sometimes.
Nope. Okay. I'll call you later. Bye. So there you go. It's either her or my dad. They always call at this time. Derek Johnson. Thank you, Derek. Derek's the best. Derek the great. Derek the great. Justin's the great too. Plus, it's 5 years after Dominion. Most dinosaurs died out and restricted to tropical regions around the equator. Look, Justin, I'm not telling you that they might not be able to pull this off and maybe they make maybe it was that the concept didn't work for me in the Jurassic World movies. They just kind of it became too ridiculous, and I didn't buy it. Maybe they make me buy it this time around. So I understand. Look, and I assume, Justin, you're probably one of them. Whether it's Perry Nemiroff, other people who are just really locked into Jurassic World in the way some of us are locked into DC or Star Wars or Marvel. So I know this is probably your thing. So I'm hoping. Look, I'm rooting for you. I want this to be a good movie. Let's see. Thank you, Derek. Owen, what's up, Owen? Just wanted to say, Owen Lanning, thank you for building such an awesome community. Oh, thanks, man. It's such a nice break for my film Twitter with all the positivity. I also have 2 daughters, 7 and 4. I love the stories about them. My youngest is a mobster too. It's crazy how they can do this morning. What did the little one just did something where she went, like this? She snapped her fingers. It did something, and she said, I can't remember what she said. She said something hilarious this morning. And I told my wife, she's got tood, man. She's got real tood. What are we doing over there? Unspeakable crimes, Mom. Unspeakable crimes. But yeah, it's the best. Thank you, Owen. That's very kind and a very, very nice message for you. So let me echo the sentiment that when people, if you say that it's such a nice community, it's because of people like yourself. So thank you. Hey there. Go, pal. Is it me or does the Via read sound like you took a gummy, started the Brutalist, and nodded off to sleep like it was the Thin Red Line? No. That's not what happened. I took it because I knew that we weren't going to finish it because I knew it was 3 hours. So I knew that if we started it right around the time we were going to watch just around 30, 40 minutes more. And then right around the time we turned it off, I would be ready to crash. And it's exactly what it was. No. Respect to that movie. I'm really digging it. I'm actually going to try to finish it tonight. So hopefully I have a full review on that probably tomorrow or something. But yeah, I can understand how that reads that way. Let's see. Next one. And got our buddy Derek Johnson again. Derek is crushing. So again, we have 41 today. Hey man, I'll take it. Gopal says, when I was 10, my parents got back to school on VHS, Rodney and Kinnison. I still quote the line from his Simpsons ep, Yale could use an international airport. Yeah, Rodney was the best. That's when I really wish I would have met Rodney. It would have been great. Oh, would have loved to have met Rodney. Such a comedic icon. Joe's stories are so great. Gopal, the little Johnny Bag of Glass sketch with Aykroyd. Yeah, he's had so many. I really encourage people to go on YouTube and just check out some of Joe's sketches, especially ones with Eddie. So great. Justin Fountain, final chat. I hope all is well and everything. Hung For's great things year. Hung For's everything. Well, the Jurassic Park stuff I understood. Thank you, Justin. Thank you also. And I hope you have a great year as well, my friend. Let's see. And now Derek coming back in. Derek just throwing in the support this week. And we'll see. Mike Kalinowski's head is going to fall off his body when he finds out how many questions and how many rocks he got yesterday. So go, pal. Those Dean Martin roasts were hilarious. They really were. 10 to 15 years ago, I bought a bunch of them on DVD. That's pretty great. Joey Pedras, I need to pick up Joe's book. You really should. It's a great read. Also inspired me to pick up Rodney's autobiography. Do you have a favorite comedian biography outside Joe's? There was an unsanctioned one on Robin Williams that I really liked. I still have it. I'd like to see if there's been one since that it actually was sanctioned, but that was the one that I really liked a lot. Derek, this was an awesome interview. I'd love to ask him a lot about Dead Heat movie, craziest movie I ever saw. You know, I it was on my things to do. So for people who I don't know, maybe I've discussed this before, maybe I don't. What I do when I'm going into an interview is I have a bunch of things like kind of on a document that I would like to get to. And I have an idea of things I know that I want to ask and I have to ask. And then there's things that I'm like, I hope I get to it. But if the conversation starts going another way, I just go with it. And I think that's why people feel a little more comfortable, because I'm not like going, oh, wait, but I got to ask you about this. I probably could have gotten there, but I already had spent an hour with him. But I that's, you know, Lou Albano, who fought it? Oh, is that a different movie? I think that was a movie. Is that Wise Guys? Maybe it's a different movie. Okay. Derek, again, crushing. Kristian Medard. Krog from Thor 3 looks more real than Ben Grimm. Damn it. Kristian, I wish you would have been here yesterday when I was talking to Roxy. Great example. Shiza. Damn it. Oh, damn it. Oh, well. Well, I'll bring it up next Tuesday, but that's a great example. Oh, yeah. Julie was pretty cute in Tinkerbell and Hook also. Nice call, Stephanie. All right. Nathan Drake. I think they said it was the island used for research for the original park. Okay, but isn't that the same thing? Could be the island from Lost World, maybe. It gives me Jurassic Park 3 vibes. Alan, yeah, it does. It does. The elephant, that's the raptor saying it out loud. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Next one. Are there next ones? Or is that the last one? That was the last one. There we go. All right. Korg. That's who it was. No. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyway, point is, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you guys today. I had a fun time being with you. A fun time sharing that interview with you. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you comment, like, want to help out the show. You put go into the description. Tomorrow we'll be back with Steph and Mike. Friday, the guys are back for Capes and Cowls. And that's it. Again, like I said, today I'll have my Squid Games. Is it Squid Game? Squid Game. Episode 2. The reaction will be out for that. Potentially something else on Thursday. I don't know yet. Friday's definitely Infinity War. Saturday is the Out of the Theater for Paddington and Peru. So that's what we got. Thanks for being here with us today. Thanks for everybody for the support. Really appreciate you. And we'll see you on the flip side.